Hello kindred longevity lifestyle designers, this is Gavin here with secretsoflongevity.com. Just in behind me here is a red currant bush. I believe it is a golden red currant bush, and the golden actually refers to the color of the flowers, which obviously if it's fruiting it's past the point of flowering. And it actually could also be a red swamp currant. I'm about 70% positive it's the golden one though, because the red swamp currant has largely 5-lobed leaves, whereas these look about to be 3. Some of the larger ones are verging on 5, and one characteristic of currants is that the leaves often do look like a maple leaf, the Canadian maple leaf. It's on the Canadian flag. It's got a similar shape, except in the case with this one subspecies it has 3. Currants are related to gooseberries. They're in the same broader family, and there's also black currants. These are red currants. They have a very similar tart flavor throughout all the different berries. There's some gooseberries I believe that are a little sweeter, and there's one species in particular of currants that's a little on the sweeter side, but they all have that distinct tart flavor. They're very high in pectin, so they're often added to jams or pies with other berries to help thicken the mixture of ingredients within that. And if we zoom in here, you can see that they often hang in drupes or big bunches, really quite close to the stem, the main stem of the plant. And they're very easy to pick, although if you're not careful you can damage the plant as you're picking them, but they should lightly fall off. And if we zoom in here, you can see that they're very simple, round berries. Oftentimes they're slightly translucent, and they almost have a similar look to gooseberries, where you can almost see like the ribbed internal aspects of the berry flesh. Obviously black currants, they're going to be not as translucent because they're much darker. Some black currants are actually verging on green as well. They might be a little bit more translucent than the black varieties. And I just popped those in my mouth, and they're very delicious. They're, like I said, very tart, sour, but excellent addition to other dishes. But if you like that sour flavor, you can certainly get a lot out of them. Great raw, but traditionally they were cooked and added to a lot of different things, heavily used by Indigenous Americans all throughout Canada as well as the US. And really it's a very beautiful plant to have just in your garden. Look at that bunch there, it's just incredible. If we step back and see the plant at large, you can see how the berries do congregate towards the center of the stems. They're not hanging that far out from the core of the plant. And let's get a close-up of one of these leaves. You can see 3 main lobes, but there's 2 sort of starting to come to prominence there. Here's another large one. 1, 2, 3, but then, like I was saying, there's 2 little ones coming out here. On other currant plants, those will be much more prominent, and you'd have that maple leaf look to them. So a few days ago I located another currant plant up at my cottage, and I took a clip of that, so we're going to go to that next. So I'm up here in my cottage, sort of in the backwoods area here, and I was investigating some blueberry patches we have back here, trying to see if the blueberries are coming along, and it's about 2 weeks off, but I found some interesting plants with some berries growing on them and did some investigation, and it turns out they're red currants, a type of currant, and we're going to go on a close-up so I can describe some of the properties of them. So I believe these are all low bush blueberries. You can see one just popping up there, but these are full of berries come 2 to 3 weeks from now. But in behind here I noticed some little red berries, and on closer investigation turns out that they're red currants. They're a type of skunk. They're called skunk currants, and you can tell that in particular by the little hairs that are on the berries. I'm not sure how visible that is. You can kind of see it against the background of my finger there, and they're actually said to be the least tasty of all the different types of currants because they have a slight skunky flavor. I describe it almost like a tomato crossed with a currant. I'll pop it in my mouth and kind of describe it on the fly. Yeah, it's still edible. It almost tastes like tomato that has balsamic vinegar in it, so I actually quite like it. There's some more back here. And the characteristic of the currant, of course, is the 5-lobed leaf. Almost all, or if not all, varieties of currants have that shape of leaf. And you can see, if I go up close here, that there is the crown indeed on the berry, which you've heard me talk about before as being a signifier of an edible berry. But you always, of course, want to make sure that it is truly what you have on hand is something that is edible. And another thing with this skunk currant is apparently brownish to purplish brown stem. This just looks brown to me. I don't see how that particular characteristic is significant on this example here. But yeah, it likes rocky areas, which obviously is doing well with this low bush blueberries up in Georgian Bay, which has particularly acidic soil because of all the pine trees that are all around here. So if you have blueberries that grow in your garden, you may be able to cultivate a type of currant such as this. Well, hey, you can actually see my skin tone a little better with this lighting, and at least in the viewfinder there, I look a little more tan than I have in previous videos as I'm shooting them. But yes, I got a lot of sun up. The cottage is lovely, and as you saw, those two different species that I was talking about, what looks to be the golden red currant and then the skunk red currant. That one I was a little more positive about. You saw the properties, you saw how to identify it. Absolutely, if you see something that looks similar to this in your area, do some searching online just to look at the different subspecies and definitely fully identify something before you choose to consume it. And some of the best health benefits that we can understand that come from this wonderful berry is that it is extremely rich in vitamin C, a little bit more than your average berry. Basically, any very tart fruit is generally going to have a very high vitamin C content. If you think of a lot of the commonly understood to be high vitamin C foods, acerola cherry, and of course amla berry, which is the Indian gooseberry, and obviously that's a related family of fruits. And then also the camu berry. These all have very sour, tart flavors, and that is in part due to the flavor of vitamin C itself. Some of the other rich nutrients found in currants of both red and black varieties is potassium. It's not overly high compared to other fruits, but we all need more potassium in our diets, in my opinion. It's a fairly, I wouldn't say common deficiency, but with more and more radioactive cesium appearing in our environment, it's an important nutrient to be getting into our diets, just like iodine displaces radioactive iodine, which we get and are aware of coming from radioactive fallout and pollution from things like Fukushima. The other one mentioned by even the mainstream media is radioactive cesium. If we have enough potassium in our body, it blocks out radioactive cesium from being basically held onto by our tissues. Another really rich nutrient found in currants is vitamin K. So if you're eating about an ounce, you're getting a mere 4% of your daily vitamin K needs, but that is still a significant amount when you consider just how small an ounce is. That's like a medium palm full. So that's pretty significant, especially if you're making jams and things, and you're consuming a lot at the time of year that currants are available. So that's going to really boost up your levels during that period. And then we have the cycle of foods in our diets with the seasons because different foods have different properties, and we bring up the levels in our bodies of these nutrients that sometimes we end up being a little deficient in if we're not eating enough variety. And one more thing is that it's rich in manganese, another nutrient or mineral that some people are deficient in, some people aren't. It's just another mineral that we need to get in, and it's also got trace amounts of various other elements. Magnesium is one that's often mentioned about it, although once again, for a fruit, it's pretty average in the magnesium department. You're looking at 1 to 2%, depending on the normal intake you might have with this on a daily basis. But it all adds up amongst the other elements in our diet. Of course, there's also the pectin, the fiber, which is very high in this, and that's what I mentioned earlier about it being such a great addition to other recipes that have other berries in it, because it helps thicken up jams and even pies and anything you would bake it into. From an herbal perspective, the entire plant is useful. The leaves have been used to make a tea that is quite anti-inflammatory and beneficial for gout and arthritic conditions for the joints. It's also, as the berries, since they're so rich in antioxidants, whether you've got the red or the black, is obviously going to be anti-inflammatory. Any kind of red food or dark purple to black food is always going to be good for the heart as well. So both the red and black berries have that property of being beneficial for various heart ailments from the herbal perspective. The berries themselves have also traditionally been used, rubbed on wounds to speed up the healing process, consumed by women to help with excessive menstrual bleeding. So there's this tie-in with red currants, or even black currants as well, with blood issues. It's also an effective treatment or addition to a treatment for helping reduce the number of seizures experienced by epileptic patients. So I hope some of this info has spurred on your interest in another one of these great wild berries that might be in your backyard, might be in your locale. Definitely, again, always check in with a local guide, whether it's a book or an actual person, to figure out what it is you are looking at if you found something like this. And let me know what you think in the comments below, if you've ever had currants, if you enjoy them, and just in general, what your experience has been with anything from the genus Ribes or Ribes or Ribes, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. But that's the overarching genus that includes the gooseberries and currants of varying types. There's also the prickly currant. It's another one out there. Generally looks like a black currant, except that it has those hairs, kind of like the skunk currant, but for some reason the black sort of bristly currant is labeled as a different species. So check out the links below, like, favorite, and share the video if you feel so inclined. And with that, I'll talk to you next time. Take care and embrace life without limits.